"Why is the cleaning lady always in the library?" one student asked, too loudly for it to be innocent. Another giggled, "Maybe she's looking for books on how to mop better." Behind the towering stacks of medical textbooks, Maria Davis heard every word. She said nothing. In her early 40s, Maria had worn the same deep blue janitor's uniform for almost a decade. Quiet, invisible, and clockwork reliable. She cleaned classrooms, scrubbed bathrooms, and vacuumed the long marble hallways of Livingston University's prestigious medical department. The students, dressed in crisp white coats and branded fleeces, rarely looked twice at her. Why would they? They assumed she was just maintenance. A woman who smelled faintly of bleach and lemon oil. A ghost with keys on her belt. But what they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Maria was also a student. A student who had been taking night classes for 6 years, sometimes cleaning during the day and studying until 3 a.m. Her textbooks were the same ones the first-year med students carried, only hers had sticky notes in Spanish. She had sat in the back rows, often in second-hand clothes, blending in with part-time students and transfers. Most of her professors had never even connected the dots. But she was there. She had always been there. Working. Watching. Learning. That morning, she had come early to mop the chemistry lab before the deans arrived. It was graduation week, and everything had to be perfect. She moved in smooth lines, up, across, rinse, repeat, her thoughts occupied by something far more pressing than floor wax. Her speech. Because tomorrow, Maria Davis, the invisible janitor, would walk across the stage. Not to sweep it. To stand at the podium. She had graduated top of her class in neuroscience. And she had been chosen to deliver the student commencement address. No one but the faculty knew. The student body, the ones who whispered and scoffed, would find out in real time. But that day, as she cleaned around a group of first-years complaining about finals and joking about unskilled labor, Maria kept her eyes on the floor, letting them say whatever they needed to. Let them laugh. It hadn't been easy. 10 years ago, Maria had come to the U.S. with a 6-year-old daughter and $43 in her pocket. Her husband, a political journalist in Honduras, had been killed during an uprising. She'd worked every job she could get, dishwasher, babysitter, bus station janitor, while slowly learning English through late-night PBS and children's books. Livingston University had offered her a custodial job. The benefits were decent, the hours stable, and it came with one tiny clause in the contract. Free classes for full-time staff. She'd read that line 3 times when she signed the papers. At first, she had just taken ESL classes. Then Intro to Biology. Then more. And more. By year 3, a counselor had sat her down and said, "Maria, have you ever considered applying formally?" She had laughed. But then she did. And they said yes. So she worked twice as hard, cleaning full shifts, studying on breaks, borrowing textbooks, watching lectures online at night, whispering flashcard terms as she mopped the stairwells. She passed every exam. Every lab. Every final. With honors. Her daughter, Sophia, now 17, knew. She had grown up watching her mother juggle toilet brushes and textbooks, saying things like, "Mi amor, neurons don't clean themselves either." They laughed about it. But there was also pride in every breath. Sophia had applied to pre-med herself. Maria always told her, "We may not have much, but we will leave footprints where people didn't expect to find us." And tomorrow, the world would see. Back in the faculty office, Dean Whitaker looked at the final list for graduation. Valedictorian, Maria Davis. Keynote student speaker, Maria Davis. Faculty advisor, Dr. Chen. He smiled and leaned back in his chair. "Let them underestimate her," he murmured. He'd never forget the moment Maria, in her faded uniform, had entered his office 5 years ago and asked if she could just sit in on a genetics lecture. She'd answered 3 questions no one else could. By the end of the semester, she had the highest grade in the class. Now, in the auditorium, preparations were in full swing. balloons, lighting tests, sound checks. Maria walked through with her cleaning cart, as always, nodding politely to everyone. No one noticed her. That was fine. They'd notice her tomorrow. On the list of scheduled speakers, her name was printed in bold. The only difference now was the letters beside it. Dr. Maria Davis, B.S. Neuroscience, valedictorian. And no one could mop that truth away. The morning of graduation, the campus buzzed like a hive of champagne-fueled ambition. Students clutched gowns and nervously straightened caps. Families gathered under tents, clutching balloons and cameras. Staff scrambled to prepare the final details, chairs aligned like dominoes across the quad, audio checks echoing from the podium. The school's signature crimson banner fluttered proudly in the breeze. And Maria Davis? She was in the same utility closet she had used for years, buttoning her uniform one last time. But this time, beneath her deep blue janitor's jacket was something new, a red and gold honor sash, neatly pressed, draped across her chest like armor. Her cap and gown hung on a hook behind the door. She stared into the scratched mirror, smoothing back her hair, her expression calm and unreadable. Outside, her world waited. Sophia knocked gently. "Mama, you ready?" Maria turned to her daughter, who was already in a floral dress, her eyes wide with emotion. "I've been ready for years," she said. Across campus, in the rows reserved for faculty and VIP guests, a few professors whispered amongst themselves. "Still can't believe she was valedictorian. I didn't even know she was a student. She cleaned my lab every week," one muttered, while acing neuro exams. Dean Whitaker overheard but said nothing. He simply smiled, adjusting his tie and checking his watch. Let them talk, he thought. In the student dressing area behind the main stage, the mood was much less gracious. A group of graduating seniors sat near the mirror, prepping for their walk. Among them, Jason, Mark, and Emily, all top GPA earners, all annoyed. "I still don't get why we let the janitor speak," Emily scoffed. "It's graduation, not a charity event." "She must have gotten sympathy votes or something," Mark said. Jason leaned back in his chair. "Honestly, it's kinda embarrassing for the school. What are they gonna say? Congratulations, you're as smart as the cleaning lady." They laughed. Behind them, a faculty staffer cleared her throat. "Graduates, please be respectful. She earned her place, just like you." They rolled their eyes, but went quiet. Only later would they realize how foolish they'd been. As the ceremony began, the seats filled quickly. Families, friends, donors, faculty, media. The announcer's voice boomed through the speakers. "Please welcome our graduating class of the year." Cheers erupted. Music swelled. Students filed in, row by row, caps bobbing like waves. Cameras flashed. Parents wept. A brass band played the school anthem. Then came the moment. "Now, please rise for our student commencement speaker, the top graduate of the neuroscience department, and this year's valedictorian, Dr. Maria Davis." Silence. Then confusion. Heads turned. Students murmured. One faculty member gasped, hand over mouth. Because walking down the center aisle, in full cap and gown, sash gleaming in the sunlight, was Maria Davis. The janitor. The woman they passed daily, who cleaned their spills, unclogged their sinks, emptied their trash. But now, she wasn't pushing a mop. She was holding a speech. And the honor cord around her neck shimmered brighter than any bleach. As she took the podium, the wind shifted. The banner above her rippled with the university seal. Maria adjusted the mic, cleared her throat, and looked out over the sea of faces, some proud, some humbled, some shocked into silence. She began. "Some of you know me as the woman who swept your classrooms. The one who mopped floors and cleaned whiteboards. For many years, I've heard whispers behind my back. I've felt the stares. I've even been laughed at. But I never stopped learning. Because I've always believed that it doesn't matter where you start. It matters how you finish. The audience sat frozen, eyes locked on her. Maria smiled gently and continued. I came to this country with nothing but my daughter's hand in mine and a dream I never dared to say aloud. That dream sat behind textbooks while I scrubbed hallways. It studied by flashlight, after work. It wore a name tag during the day, and aced neuro exams at night. She paused. And now, that dream is standing here, with honors. The crowd erupted in applause. A few gasps. A few tears. One student stood, then another. A standing ovation spread across the lawn like a slow-moving wave of awakening. Backstage, the same trio of smug seniors stood speechless. Emily blinked. Jason whispered, "No way." The very woman they laughed at now held the mic, in the crowd, in the palm of her hand. Sophia watched from the front row, her hands pressed to her mouth, eyes shining. "Mama," she whispered. "They finally see." Maria finished her speech with a quiet strength. To anyone who's ever been underestimated, your silence does not mean weakness. Your work does not define your worth. And your story is far from over. She stepped back from the podium. The wind caught her tassel as she turned and nodded to the dean. And in that moment, there was no janitor on the stage. There was only a doctor. A mother. A woman who refused to be invisible. The applause didn't die quickly. It surged, paused, and swelled again, like a heartbeat no one wanted to let go of. For a moment, it wasn't just about Maria Davis. It was about every invisible worker who had ever been overlooked. It was about every dream swept into the margins by uniforms and mop buckets. Maria stepped off the stage to the sound of feet stomping and hands clapping. The dean extended his hand, but she pulled him into a hug instead. The crowd roared louder. On the way back to her seat, her fellow graduates parted for her like waves before a rising tide. Even those who had mocked her just days earlier, Jason, Mark, Emily, looked away, ashamed, their confidence unraveling. Jason tried to clap, but it felt hollow in his palms. Emily wiped under her sunglasses, hoping no one saw. After the ceremony, families spilled across the lawn. Balloons floated. Laughter and tears mixed like sunlight on glass. Maria stood quietly off to the side, cap in hand, watching Sophia take photos with her own friends. Her daughter beamed, genuine, radiant. She had asked earlier if she could post the speech on social media. Maria had hesitated. "I don't want to be famous," she'd said. Sophia had smiled. "You don't need to be famous, Mama. You just need to be heard." Now, the speech had already been clipped and uploaded by a professor's assistant. It was going viral before they even left campus. Dr. Chen, Maria's advisor, approached with a soft grin. "You shook the system today." Maria laughed gently. "I just told the truth." "Yes. And sometimes, that's the most radical thing anyone can do." He paused. "There's a research grant I'd like to nominate you for. And a spot in our PhD program, if you want it." Maria's eyes widened. "You don't have to decide now," he added. "But just know, you've already opened the door." As Maria and Sophia headed toward the parking lot, people kept stopping them. Students. Parents. Even security guards. One young woman in a gown, mascara streaked, said, "My mom works 2 jobs. She's never been to one of my graduations. I wish she could have seen yours." Maria hugged her. No words needed. Another parent, a man in a business suit, offered his hand. "I'm ashamed to admit I assumed you were just staff. That speech, your story, it changed how I'll raise my son." Maria simply nodded. Let them reckon with it. That evening, back at their small apartment, Maria hung her sash on a coat hook near the door. Sophia snapped a picture of it with their old digital camera. "Put it next to the one from your first cleaning shift," she teased. They laughed. But it was a real thought. A full circle moment. Because that sash didn't erase the mop. It honored it. Later that night, Maria sat on their small sofa, flipping through graduation pictures on her phone. She paused on one, a photo of her on stage, hand on the podium, eyes looking toward the sky. She smiled. Then whispered, almost to herself, "They'll never forget this one." She put her phone down and opened her laptop. PhD applications weren't going to fill themselves. But elsewhere in town, a different kind of conversation was unfolding. In the boardroom of a large medical research firm just 10 miles from campus, a few executives sat reviewing potential candidates for a junior research position. One file had just landed on their desk, the top graduate in neuroscience, multilingual, with lab experience, and an unexpected background. They scrolled, paused, stared. "Is this the janitor from Livingston?" one of them asked. The room went quiet. Another leaned in. "She's the one who gave that speech. You know, the one everyone's sharing on LinkedIn." "Interesting." They exchanged glances. "Call her in." In a matter of days, the girl in the blue uniform was being requested by companies that wouldn't have let her clean their lobbies a week ago. Irony didn't bother Maria. She didn't need revenge. She had progress. At Wilson Academy, where Sophia was about to start her senior year, one of her classmates pulled her aside. "Hey," he said awkwardly, "your mom, she's like a hero or something." Sophia gave a modest shrug. "She's always been. You just never looked close enough." 2 weeks later, Maria was walking through the university halls, this time not with a mop, but a briefcase. She passed a group of first-year students, some in scrubs, some in dress shoes. They smiled politely. She smiled back and walked straight into the research wing. Not to clean it, to run it. The research wing smelled different when you belonged there. Not like floor wax or cheap cafeteria coffee. It smelled like focus, purpose, glass beakers and clean pages and possibilities. Maria adjusted her ID badge as she stepped through the lab doors, not as a visitor, not as a cleaner, but as a full-fledged researcher. The lanyard around her neck bore a new title: Dr. Maria Davis, Junior Neuroscience Fellow. It still felt unreal. But her steps were steady, her heart even. Because this wasn't luck. This was the product of relentless hours when no one was watching. She had earned every square foot of that sterile tiled floor. She passed by interns half her age, some wide-eyed at her presence. Whispers trailed behind her. "Is that her? From the speech?" She was a janitor, right? Maria smiled. She didn't mind. Let them talk. She had always been more than they saw. Back at home, Sophia was helping sort through old boxes. Inside one, Maria's old notebooks, dog-eared textbooks held together with duct tape, and flashcards scribbled in 2 languages. At the bottom, wrapped in a rubber band, was her first Livingston staff badge. Sophia held it up. "Should we throw it away?" Maria took it in her hand and paused. Then shook her head. "No," she said softly. "Frame it." Sophia looked confused. Maria looked her daughter in the eyes. "That badge paid for the one around my neck now. Never forget where you start." They hung it beside the diploma. Weeks passed. The speech continued to spread. Schools emailed to ask if she'd be willing to talk to first-gen students. A local women's nonprofit invited her to give the keynote at their conference. A national magazine requested an interview. Maria declined most of it. Not because she didn't care, but because she was focused. There was science to be done. Brains to understand. Projects to lead. In the quiet hours of the lab, while others craved recognition, Maria focused on the work. She didn't need to be known everywhere. Just known deeply by those she served. And then one day, something happened she didn't expect. Sophia came home with a letter. Her college application results. She opened the envelope at the kitchen table, eyes wide, hands shaking. "Full scholarship," she whispered. "Pre-med, top university." Maria covered her mouth. They hugged. They cried. Then they sat in silence, the kind of silence only joy can bring. One woman who had built herself from nothing. One girl who had watched her mother rewrite every rule. Two futures, intersecting in the kitchen where dreams once felt too far away. Later that year, Maria returned to Livingston, not as a janitor, not as a student, but as a guest lecturer. In the same auditorium where she once stood in a uniform. The same floor she once mopped. The dean introduced her to a standing ovation. And as she stepped up to the podium once more, Maria looked out at a new generation of faces. Some looked like her. Most didn't. But all of them were listening. She began. There are stories we inherit, and stories we build ourselves. I was once the woman who emptied the trash in your labs. Now I'm writing the research you'll one day quote. So don't tell me who belongs where. Make them rewrite the rules. Months passed. Years. Maria published 3 papers. Got promoted twice. Sophia graduated and joined a surgical residency. On her first day, she pinned her mother's old Livingston badge inside her coat, near her heart. When asked who inspired her, she didn't say a celebrity or a TED Talk. She said, "My mom." And on the walls of Livingston University, just outside the new Student Resilience Center, hung a large photo in a sleek black frame. Maria Davis. In uniform. Mop in hand. Caption beneath. Dr. Maria Davis, from custodian to neuroscientist. Let no one define your ceiling. And every year, during freshman orientation, the faculty would pause at that wall and tell the same story. About the woman in blue who changed everything. Not by yelling. Not by demanding. But by rising, one quiet, defiant step at a time.